Call to order the June regular meeting of the Finance Committee. Thank everybody for coming today. This is our regular meeting, so we will have our typical consent and general agenda. This is also budget season, so the second half of the meeting we will spend on the budget. And I believe tomorrow is a budget meeting if needed, I believe. Is that correct? So anyway, with that, we will begin with the consent agenda. Are there any items anyone would want removed? And Mr. McIntosh has already given me C2. Everybody look.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a few.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to look at C5
C5,
and C7
C7,
and C8.
and C8. Are there any others?
It's a long one.
It's a long list of
Yeah.
consent, isn't it?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Excuse me. About the quarry? Could somebody?
C10.
C10, so we have C10.
Yeah, and I have a question about that as well.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the balance?
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor of approving the balance on consent, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That is approved, and I have C2, 5, 7, 8, and 10, and I will do them in numerical order, and we will start with C2, if the Secretary will read that one.
Item C2, information regarding proposed City of Winston-Salem Opportunity Loan Program.
Evan, this is a new program. I know this is just for information, but why don't you present it to us so we'll know what's going on?
Certainly, Chairman Clark. And good afternoon, Chairman Clark, members of the committee, Mayor Joines. As the chairman pointed out, this is a new program that we're proposing, and just at this point looking for your feedback. And based on our conversation today, we plan to bring it back to council in August for action. But if you remember back during your strategic planning retreat in January, one of the work items that was identified under the economic vitality focus area was the creation of a project-based lending program. That was identified as one of your priorities. And so for the last several months, staff has been doing some research on contract-based working capital loan programs that are operated by pure municipalities. And we have proposed an outline that you have there before you for a similar program of our own. The purpose of the program, and we're calling it the Opportunity Loan Program. It is a working capital loan program, the purpose of which is to assist owners of local small businesses with working capital to help meet the initial cost of contracts with the city, to provide short-term, low-rate working capital loans, increase local small businesses' access to capital, and to put larger city-sponsored projects within reach, to assist local small businesses in managing cash flow during the life of a project, and to increase the pool of local small businesses that are able to compete for city-sponsored projects. If approved, we intend to use the same funding that is set aside for loans for the small business program to make loans to this program. We propose at least initially capping the amount of money available for the Opportunity Loan Program at $100,000. We believe an individual cap would be about $30,000 per loan. So with that, that's just a kind of a brief overview of some of the stipulations and guidelines and the intent. Happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, this is just for information, so we'll go with questions.
I have a concern. A man called me today, and he says he wants to go into his business. And when he comes to the city, what would you expect for him to have? He says she says they're small business people.
In order to be a loan recipient?
Yes.
Well, we do due diligence on most of all of our prospective loan recipients. For the small business loan program, which is the most traditional means through which a small business owner would be seeking funding from the city, there's a loan package that we help those individuals assemble. It includes all of the things that you traditionally find in a loan package if you went to a private lender. So your credit history, your statement of collateral, your statement of equity, personal tax returns. There's a myriad items that we request to put together that package.
Well, so many of the folks call, and they want to get loans from the city. And you need to tell them they need to have something. You just can't come and say, I want to get a loan. You have to have something other than I want to get a loan coming out of your mouth. And Today, I think a person got a little concerned with me because he said he wanted to do this and he was going to help the citizens. I said, you help the citizens how? Not by saying your business will serve the citizens. What are you going to put in your business to let us know you are a capable business person? And I don't think we do enough of that to let them know the city is not a place you can come because you want a business. You have to come with something.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Ms. Adams, and then Ms. Montgomery.
Yes, I think this is a good step, and that the council is moving in the right direction to try to assist small businesses and, and being able to have capital to buy equipment, whatever else they need in order to be successful. The models that we have for our loans, they're all good, but they serve different initiatives or purposes. This one hits direct to the NRSA area of the city. And again, we're hoping, a lot of people tell us the reason they can't bid on the contracts is because they don't have enough capital. And, this is one of the results out of the strategic visioning. I'm looking forward, hopefully, again, as the Mayor Pro Tem said, we got to make sure we promote this through our churches, through minority, women's businesses, nonprofits, other agencies, Goodwill, Reentry, others that are looking to get in the business. And mind you, I know it's a private for profit, so nonprofits can't go after this bucket of money, but they help a lot of people that are in business for themselves. So I think this is a good move in the right direction.
Mr. Montgomery.
Yes, I'd echo Councilman Adams' comments in reference to I think we're moving in the right direction. In particular, from our strategic planning session in terms of having conversations around how do we support entrepreneurship and how do we help small businesses grow. This would be actually a return of programs that existed in the past in terms of helping to support organizations, particularly that were looking and seeking contract work with the city in the past, and being able to rebrand and box something together now that can have an impact. The only question or more concern I have is that, as you stated, Mr. Riley, that this would use existing funds within the loan pool now. And to me, that does not expand the dollar amount that's available to the community if we're going to be tapping the same exact resources and simply only now having an opportunity to receive funds from a different direction. So to me, if we're going to say we're allocating $100,000 to that, then there should be $100,000 added to that pool so that we're actually expanding funds available to the community and not subtracting from other dollars within the loan program itself.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I agree, Evan. I think this is a good program. Will potentially help some small businesses do work with the city. I just want to make sure, in terms of collateralizing this, we're going to get an assignment of the city's contract to them so that we can be ensured that
Could be done that way, yes, or it could be done by collateralizing via some other source.
I think we ought to get the city's contract
Sure,
on
that, yes, that is.
because we've gotten burned a few times.
Is that all, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. McIntosh.
So is these loans going to be strictly for capital loans, or are they going to be operating loans, be tied to real estate?
The use of the funds can be to manage cash flow. If you need inventory, you need equipment, payroll expenses to start up, mobilization expenses. So those would be eligible uses for the funds.
Okay, because there's language in here about principal and interest payments of the city's loan is deferred until full payment on an assigned eligible municipal project has been received. If we're bridging the gap, we're acting as a bridge loan, how do we determine when that closes? I mean, is it the closing of the loan? I'm just a little curious as to mechanisms.
Sure. Our intent there was to provide the holder of the loan with an opportunity to really utilize that capital to advance themselves. So if we began the repayment clock essentially immediately following the closing of the loan, it wouldn't, we were trying to give the loan recipient a greater opportunity to use that capital, not just for that particular project, but to do it beyond that as well, just to kind of give them a greater opportunity, a greater length of time to hold the capital. That was kind of our intent. And to close up the project, since it's our own project, we know when the final disbursement of funds are made. So we thought that would be kind of an appropriate time to start the clock in terms of repayment.
Mr. Larson, did you have a comment? I couldn't tell. You certainly can if you'd like.
Yes, I just had a couple quick questions.
Yeah, no.
The amounts of these loans would be approximately in the range of
10 to 30,000.
10 to 30, and these
30.
are loans, they're not forgivable after 5 years or anything, are they?
That's correct. There is a forgiveness portion that is built in.
There is a forgivable
Or
portion.
if you, and this is structured very similarly to our small business loan program,
Okay.
whereby if you repay the first 75% of the loan, no delinquencies on time, then the final 25% is forgiven. At least that's what we're proposing.
Right. I think it's an exciting program, and I definitely want to support it. And do you anticipate then a good demand for this out there? I mean, people are asking you for this
Absolutely.
level of support. That's what my
Absolutely.
sense
We've
is.
heard that fairly consistently.
Ms. McIntosh, you had another question?
Two other quick things. Is this location-based, other than being inside the city limits? Is it NSRA?
It
Okay.
is, yes.
So it strikes me that there may be a lot of overlap between this and RUCA. If it's a capital project and somebody wants to spend money on a building, it seems like that could be done within RUCA,
So
shifted over to there.
So this would not be for property. This would basically be a business loan for just strictly for working capital. If you're a contractor, so one of the qualifying criteria to be eligible for this loan pool is that you have been awarded a contract with the city to perform somewhere.
Got it, okay.
Miss,
And one last
Go
one,
ahead,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
And then how do we measure effectiveness, overall effectiveness?
Well, our hope is to see, at least in my opinion, to see, as it's stated in our intent, to see a greater number of small local businesses that are competing on city projects, that folks that we may not have seen, some of the names that we see on an occasional basis being able to more consistently bid and compete for jobs. That's our intent.
Let's keep score on that. As
Sure.
if we do this and go forward with it, let's make sure we watch those running totals. Thank you.
Ms. Burke, you had no comment?
Yes, Councilman McIntosh asked similar to mine, when will we get another report to see just where we're going with this project? How
I apologize. Did you say when? I didn't hear.
often will we get a report to see how this project is moving along?
We could bring one back 6 months after, assuming it's approved, we can bring a report back in 6 months.
Mr. Chairman, I feel we need to have a report.
Yes. Good point. Mr. Montgomery?
Just one last comment. I think that programs like this help to attempt to find some equity in businesses, and particularly small minority-owned business, although this will be open to others to apply for. But when we look at larger corporations in the community that are able to bid and have built capacity, historically, if you look at how they've been able to do that, we have to take into consideration many factors on how those companies got to where they were. And being able to have programs like this in place helps to find some sense of equity with smaller corporations who are trying to move forward, who do not benefit from some of the past historical benefits that some of the other corporations in the community benefited from.
This is for information only. I do have a few comments, but I hear a general consensus for you to kind of flesh it out and come back with something. Just a few comments. One, we do have a small business loan program that's administered by, I know it's a Citizens Committee, it's probably called the Citizens Small Loan Committee or something. I don't know if you envision someone like that administering it or whatever. Secondly, I'm wondering if we should not put a limit. If let's say I'm bidding on $50,000 worth of chairs, let's say chairs for the city. Should there be a limit on what percent I can borrow against that?
There is.
I liked it till you mentioned you're going to forgive 25% of it, and I can tell you right now, because I used to sell chairs to the city, I didn't have anywhere near a 25% margin. I could borrow, say it's a $50,000 contract, I borrow $50,000. I'm going to make 25% on it just from the loan forgiveness. I can sell the chairs actually below cost and still make more money than you typically would. So I think we need to be a little careful there. Thirdly, is there going to be a limit on how many times people can use it? I think that's of interest. And the last one I had on how to collateralize this, there is something called factoring where you sell your receivables. I thought you could just take the receivable as a collateral. Again, let's say it's a $50,000 worth of chairs. They borrowed $20,000. We owe them $50 when they deliver. You give them $30 in cash, and you forgive the loan, or whatever you do. You take the payment out of the receivable, and that way you're collateralizing it with the receivable. And again, there are industries, including the furniture industries, by coincidence, where factoring is a very common thing, where you basically, the companies sell their receivables, and the folks that buy, and there are certain companies that specialize in factoring. But I hear a general interest. I just think you need to be sure you got all the details worked out. Mr. Montgomery?
I think and Mr. Riley, Mr. Manager, you can tell me if I'm wrong, the 25% forgiveness is, I think, a policy piece that we adopted around our loans some time ago. And so I'm not sure if that's just something that has blanketly applied on some of these, but I know that was something that was done, and I guess it may be something that we may need to look at specifically different on this, but I know that was an adopted policy that we had.
I doubt if anybody sells anything on an open bid to the city that makes a 25% gross margin on it. That's just based on my experience. Anyway, good thoughts. Yes,
One
ma'am.
other thing that I feel we need to do, just go back and review how long we've been working with small business and some of the plans that we have had. I think that would help us the history on it.
And we've had, for example, we have a restaurant loan program for downtown. There's a couple of programs we have out there that are in the same category. Okay, next one is C5. If the secretary would read that, please.
Item C5, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with AECOM to provide bicycle master planning services.
Mr. Turner, I see your name here. Can you introduce this and this is for information only, I believe? Or is there
Just for approval, Mr.
approval?
Chairman.
Okay, so you go ahead and tell us about
Back in March, we presented information to the Public Works Committee on a consulting firm that we had selected for. Actually, March was the second time we had presented it. We provided additional information at that time. We had also provided information earlier on the firm that we had selected to do bicycle planning, master planning work with the city's DOT for the next phase of our activity in this area. The city has had an ongoing bicycle program for a number of years. It's time to update that program, and we've decided to hire an outside consultant to assist us with that work. Went through a normal professional selection process, as we always do for this type of work. Selected the firm of AECOM. There were 6 or so firms that submitted for it. They received the highest point score based upon things like experience, availability, their proposal, citizen engagement plan, even a few small points as allowed by the state for MWBE participation and locality. Be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay. I did notice on my sign-up sheet a Carrie Barrs here, I think with AECOM. Is there anything you would like to add? You certainly can if you'd like to come up. And if you'll give your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Carrie Barr, and I work for AECOM. I am actually a citizen of Greensboro, so 214 Beverly Place in Greensboro.
Thank you.
But I'm here to just thank you all for your consideration in letting us do this work for the city and MPO. We're a local firm in North Carolina. We have over 800 employees. We have an office here in Winston-Salem, in Winston Tower, as well as an off-site office or field office for a client. We're growing. Our CEO is hoping to grow specifically in North Carolina as the work permits. And we're looking forward to working with you. So thank you for your time.
Okay, just if you wouldn't mind staying in the room if there's any questions.
Yeah, I'll be right here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Mr. Larson, you pulled this. You got any?
Yeah, I'm very excited to see this, and the reason I pulled it, because I think sometimes things on the consent agenda get lost to the public, and our commitment then to bicycles has been proven recently in a variety of ways. I was curious about the schedule of the report of deliverables on this. Could you give me an idea when we'll see this report?
I believe it's the end of the year.
End of the year?
Well, sorry, this is 2 days.
Could you come up? That you will not get on. You will not be famous and on TV if you do not come up there.
I believe it's a 2-phase project, and I think phase 1 is towards the end of this year, and I want to say the next is maybe a year after that.
Okay, thank you very much.
So as far as budget planning, to implement recommendations, we'll see what?
Let me look at the schedule.
Everything costs money,
It,
as we've discovered.
let's see.
You can submit this to us offline.
Yeah,
Would be fine. I mean,
Actually, Mr. Turner, can you be sure we have it in for next Monday night? Just the
Certainly, we'll
schedule.
put it in your Thursday package.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, it says 12
Thank-
months.
thank you.
Okay.
That's fine.
Any other questions or comments in this area? I'll need a motion to approve C7.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve C7. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. That is approved.
C5.
C5, excuse me. And Ms.
C5.
Barr, let me tell you how we work here. This is a committee, so this is actually a recommendation that will be voted on the full board, and they're pretty much sitting around this table with one exception. And we meet Monday night at 7 o'clock. It'll be next Monday night, which is the third Monday of the month, by the way.
It will remain on the consent agenda.
Yeah, and it will be on the consent agenda, that meeting as well, and if it is not pulled, the consent agenda is all passed in one motion. So, anyway, I've got ahead of myself. The next item is C7. Let me bring that one up. If the
Corporating Plaza.
Secretary
Corporating Plaza.
could read that one as well.
Item C7, resolution authorizing an agreement with SKA Consulting Engineers Incorporated for professional architectural services for Corporating Plaza renovations located in the South Ward in the amount of $135,100.
Let me stop a minute. Am I supposed to be voting on this electronically?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. We will start with C7, voting electronically. Motioning and everything. Okay?
Gee.
All right. Would you please comment on it?
Chair, members of the committee,
It's in your area.
not sure exactly what the question
What the problem is.
is.
My understanding is that this work by SKA
Yes.
is the firm that's being engaged, and that they were the firm that originally designed, specified this particular, in the original construction contract?
Yes.
What was the life expectancy? What did we get out of the original installation? How long did we survive until we had to reinvest? And the next question is this a matter of deferred maintenance or just life expectancy on this thing?
Councilmember, the answer to the first question is SKA was the firm that originally designed the Corporate Plaza, the fountains, originally when they were originally installed.
Right.
The repair work that's been taking place on the main waterfall, when we removed the panels, we discovered a number of safety-related issues. We consulted with our risk management department and got SK to design some brackets to hold up to actually provide additional support for the east and west vertical walls on each side of the waterfall, and that's what this work is for. We believe it's a long-term temporary fix until we have the funding to come back and remove the precast panels both on the east and west side of the waterfall of Corporate Plaza, and then we can go and repair those metal connections at that time.
So the sort of the question was whether we have design failure or whether we have deferred maintenance problems, or what caused us to get to where we are right now?
The precast, well, the galvanized metal connections that actually hold the precast panels together over time have deteriorated. The contractor, when they were originally installed some stainless steel connections, some weren't stainless steel. And without being able to get in there and do some exploratory work, we would have never known. That's why you see the rust coming out of some of the joints, but not out of all of the joints on the walls, on the vertical precast panels on Corporate Plaza.
Right.
In those areas, we believe that the contractor, when the original installation occurred, cut some corners, and that's what we're trying to address now. It's not an issue of deferred maintenance.
Okay, so we have a installation contractor failure to perform the contract as specified and cut corners, and now we're paying for it.
I wouldn't necessarily phrase it that way. Originally, when a lot of the waterproofing that's been occurring on the upper end near BB&T, all of that additional waterproofing was the result of the same type of, shoddy contractor work when the original installation was put in. When they laid the waterproofing fabric down, they actually tilled the mortar for the pavers on top of the waterproofing membrane and cut holes into it during that process and created leaks that we inherited several years later. So This particular contractor, when it was originally installed, cut some corners. BB&T's felt the effects of it. The city's felt the effects of it. And we've been addressing them as they've been discovered by us ever since. This will, in our opinion, be the last part that we will be able to or need to address in the immediate future until some substantial funding is there for us to kind of go in, pull down all those precast panels and repair the connections.
Can somebody tell me when Corcoran Plaza was built? 83, 84.
Yeah.
35 years. Okay. Just
Back then.
okay.
So-
Go ahead. And then
So
Ms.
we've
Burke.
got reasonable life, is that what we're saying out of this?
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, we're not going back to the contractor at this point.
Ms. Burke,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes. I'm glad you would bring that up, Mr. Larson, because I have said that we do a poor job of looking at projects when we give them to contractors. And I've been in communication with city manager on many occasions, and I said if we would look at our buildings, we wouldn't let them get into condition if we would monitor them carefully. And when a person is hired to do the job, we need to look at what they are doing, because Mr. Rosser inherited this being new in this job and looking at the recreational facilities we have in parks. And I'm going to say again, Mr. City Manager, whomever you may have at times looking at the projects, they're just hitting and missing. And this is not against anybody, but these are tax dollars. And some of us have paid taxes for ages in this city. And the people who work for this city and this county, because we put a lot of dollars, some of us, I don't put no chicken change with my tax dollars. And I don't do just one house with my tax dollars. And I think it's a disgrace when we allow certain things to happen, Mr. Chairman, and that. Thanks.
Ms. Adams, you had a comment?
Just wanted everybody to know again, and it's no excuse. This was 35 years ago. Some of the features that we all understand now, whether it's engineering, construction, and others, and regulation and safety has changed. We can better understand it. I don't think when the plaza was built that we thought we would be going down this path, but they're not the only ones across the country. I've heard other council members at meetings and things tell me about certain parts and buildings in their cities that they helped to do about the precast wall placements and whatever. The housing authority over whether it's Crystal or whether it's Sunrise, the federal government, same thing. Again, I think it boils down to, again, what the expectations were then, safety, versus where we are now when we see we have a problem. The real thing we need to focus on, that we know it's a problem, it's a safety issue, and it is our responsibility to correct it.
Mr. McIntyre?
If I'm not wrong, this was part of the super block originally, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's been plagued by bad dirt for many, many years, hasn't it? And that's sort of the underlying problem that we've dealt with and kind of thrown money at. The Scottish sheep side of me wants to say, what would it cost to just fill it in?
Shut it down.
Right. But the other side of me says, my kids played in the fountain. I've been to many, many events there, and it's sort of a signature
It is.
site in Winston-Salem. So it's painful to have to go back in and throw money at it again, but I do think it's something that we need to do, and we need to do it right and not have to redo it all over again. It kind of pains me that we know we're going to have to go back and do this, but if we don't have the capital now, or we're not ready to spend the capital on it now, then that's what we need to do.
Okay. Yes.
Let me be clear. My intent was to figure out whether this was a deferred maintenance issue or whether, in fact, it was an original design in a construction issue. And I'm thrilled, obviously, that it's not a deferred maintenance issue, which would fall on the city's shoulders of how we maintain our resources. I am obviously disappointed. I guess 30-something years is not bad. That we're having a failure now, and I appreciate the aggressive effort on the part of Parks to address it for the safety and operation of that park.
Yeah, we had vertical displacement of those east and west panels where they were deflecting out, and they were more so acting as a dry stack retaining wall. And so because of the number of weddings, photo opportunities that people take in front of the fountains, we wanted to make sure that we weren't handling or addressing any sort of risk to the public, and make sure that we shore that vertical displacement and put it back into place until we can come back and with a more permanent long-term solution.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
And it is named after a distinguished, humble man who worked very hard as a mayor for this city. He was the kind of man that he could talk to the farmers, and he had a high flow with walk over. He could talk with them too. Very fine man, and I would always like to see his name there. Thank you.
It is with some trepidation that I ask if there is a motion.
I move for,
Well, you can't,
I can't.
can you do the thing?
Want to do out loud as well?
Yeah, okay.
I move for approval
We
of
have a motion
C7.
and a second, and when it comes up, if y'all wouldn't mind doing that.
Oh, you have to vote on this thing.
Yeah, but they got to bring it up.
So far, nothing's happened on mine. The suspense.
It's expedites.
Isn't electronic efficiency wonderful?
Am I supposed to do something?
I can't do anything.
Hang on a minute. It's Mr. McIntosh again.
It's probably me.
Probably that Mac.
Okay, can we vote on it electronically? Okay, chair's going to exercise his executive privilege. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, that is approved, 4-0. And that was C7. We will now go to C8, if the secretary could read that one.
Item C8, resolution authorizing a change order to Smith Gardner in the amount of $84,230.46 for work on the Bowman Gray Stadium methane gas remediation program located in the East Ward.
The chair has been excused for a moment. Who pulled it?
I pulled it.
Councilmember
Madam
Larson.
Chairman, Mayor. If I understand correctly, that this brings the total to $308,139. Is that what our total contract is now with this particular firm, or is this 89 on top, or 84 on top of the previous existing contract? And then the next question I would have is, how much have we spent in total as a city or utilities or whoever put into the mitigation project at Bowman Gray? How much money have we invested in that site to date, dealing with this specifically with this mitigation issue?
Yeah, Councilmember Larson, the answer to your first question, this is a change order for $84,000, which would bring the total contract value with Smith Gardner to the $308,139.74. So total contract value would be the $308,000.
Total, okay.
To your second question, approximate cost for the project to date, the remediation on both sides, the southwest lot and the east lot, you're looking at a construction total to date. There's still some costs rolling in. There's a provisional payment outstanding right now, but total project cost is approximately $1.9 million. So total project cost with construction, contract administration, whatnot, you're looking at 2.2 to 2.4 total, approximately.
And that includes the cost of paving the parking lots and all
Yes,
that
sir.
other,
Yes, sir.
as well as the stations and everything.
Yes,
right?
sir. Change order for the southwest lot is included.
Right. So 2.2.
While we're talking about this, Ms. Carmen, could you, I'm going to look to you, could you give us an update on the potential sales in Winston-Salem State?
I'm going to defer to Ben. We did have a meeting just a couple of weeks ago with the folks at WSSU, and he may have an update.
Ben, would you mind updating the general public and the council on this?
Yes, sir. So the city manager, city attorney, and I had a meeting with Winston-Salem State University staff a couple of weeks ago. They've been in conversations with state officials to try to develop a more specific timeline for when the sale may take place. And right now it's looking like with all the approvals that would be required, it could be towards the end of this calendar year. Right now, the Brownfields agreement is still under review. Once that review is complete, there will be a 1-month public comment period. Then after that, they can move forward with developing a purchase agreement that would then have to go to the Council of State. At the same time, the financing for the purchase that the school would need will be under consideration and will have to go to the UNC Board of Governors for approval. So once those processes are complete, then obviously the purchase proposal has to come to the mayor and council for approval. So with all that in play, we're thinking it could be towards the end of the calendar year.
Okay, so y'all heard it, end of the year.
But we're going to
It's
keep
on the record.
monitoring.
Okay, thank you. Back to this, are there any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion on this then?
Motion to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
Already.
We're going to do this verbally?
Yeah.
Actually, it should be up on the screen.
It is.
Oh, it is?
I move for approval.
Hang on a minute.
I'm going to verbally second, because I don't have
I just seconded it.
a...
Okay, all in favor, please vote on your computers.
Okay.
And the vote is? The vote is unanimous. That's on C8. Okay, good job, guys. We will now go to C10.
Item C10, resolution authorizing a change order to Barr Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $190,000 for the construction of Quarry Park development located in the southeast ward.
This is the Quarry Park. Mr. Turner, if you would give us an introduction, then Ms. Burke, I'll let you do whatever
That was
you'd
for
like.
the purpose, so
Okay.
that we would know.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this item is to award a change order for additional work that we encountered with the with the development of the Quarry Park, which is off of Reynolds Park Road. Be happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
Okay.
And
Now,
the
Go ahead.
engineer is here as well.
I don't have a question. I brought it up because if Mr. Keller was here, he wanted to be brought up.
Yeah.
To let us know the progress and how things are moving ahead with this. This is a wonderful something that's happening there.
It is. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, we actually have a meeting scheduled on Friday with Recreation to hand the park over to Recreation. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be ready to open because they have to move in and get things ready, but we're very close on that. The greenway itself is not complete. We still have a bridge to install. That's supposed to be delivered sometime in July, so the greenway will remain closed even though we hope to have the park open.
So sometime this summer, people will be able to enjoy it.
That is correct.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, Ms. Adams?
Yes. My question is, I guess, to Mr. Rao, the city manager, what are the change order amounts total? Where are we right now when it comes to bond projects? And don't we have like a contingency fund, cost overruns item in the bonds for the new projects? And if we do, how much money has been used for cost overruns for bond projects? You don't have to tell us now, but I'd like to know that before the Monday meeting. I think the council needs to know that.
We'll provide you an
Thank you.
of that.
Okay. All right, can I get a motion on this and wait and see if it comes up here?
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a,
Touch and
we don't know what we're going to do. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now you may vote. That's on the screens. Everybody will vote. Okay. And it is unanimous, 4-0. Okay, that concludes the consent agenda. We will now move to the general agenda. And we have 4 items on it. So we will start with G1. If the secretary would read this one, please.
Item G1, resolution approving modification to a previously approved economic development loan to Winston-Salem Business Incorporated for construction of a speculative building located in the southeast ward.
Mr. Page, I'll let you introduce this, and I see Mr. Lee could see if we have any questions, if you would hang around.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark, members of the Finance Committee. Back in January 2015, you all approved a loan to Winston-Salem Business, Inc. to develop a spec building. We approved $2.5 million. They were building a 50 to 60,000 square foot spec building in the Union Cross Business Park, and the building had the capacity of being expanded another 20,000 square feet. After they started doing a detailed analysis, determined that there was too much stone there, which basically made this site cost prohibitive to develop. So Mr. Leake has been working with another potential developer to build a spec building of 140,000 square feet, so more than twice the size of the original spec building, for about $6.5 million in the Union Cross Industrial Center, which is a little bit over 3 miles from the Union Cross Business Park. This will be on Temple School Road, beside the Caterpillar and Dell facilities. It's the old Dell property
where Herbalife is now. So beside that is 100 acres of land. That's the Union Cross Industrial Center that's looking to be developed. Under the proposal, all of the conditions would remain the same except location has changed. So the city would still be in first position. The city's loan would still be repaid in full at the sale of the building. And actually, we are in a better position because you have a more expensive building that we're in first position on. So it helps address the need for some of the speculative space in the community. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from anybody? Yes, sir.
And I'm not sure if Mr. Page can answer this, or maybe it's Mr. Lee. The piece of dirt that we're moving away from, is it good for anything else now?
Mr. Leak, if you would mind coming up, if you please give your name and address for the record.
Bob Leak, 1080 West 4th Street, Winston-Salem, 27101. Mayor, members of the committee. The answer is that site is usable. When we went to do the first building on the site, we discovered rock that we're going to have to actually cut, rip, and maybe even blast. That brought the cost up way above the $2.5 million. I didn't have another source of funds to match that. Put that site on hold temporarily. We had a developer come forward, said we'd like to build a bigger building, more expensive building. It fits our needs very, very well. We plan to use profits from that and or the sale of other property to eventually go back to the site with rock and just pay the upcharge on getting rid of the rock.
So we can take another swing at it?
Absolutely. We plan to take another swing at it. It's just going to cost more than $2.5 million.
Right.
Same with our site where we built the road. I've got that site available as well. It's pad ready. I've been talking to the county about matching the $2.5 million city loan. This opportunity came along. Doesn't require another match at this point. You get first lien on the building. Building's worth 2.5 times what we were going to do in the first place. So I think it's a good deal.
Mr. Leak, order of magnitude, what would it cost on that original site to blast that? What are you talking about?
An extra $300,000.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
I was just going to make a comment before we voted on this. Sometimes people come down and they say that we're really not a progressive place. And I've said to the city manager, as the mayor, I think you need to do a better job in the marketing. Now, when we look, and you did a very good job on television the other day talking about the Black Festival in this city and what we have. When we look at the city of Winston-Salem, and we can go and look at what we're doing downtown, and I feel we need to show all those developments and then go into different areas and show what we have developed. Just think about what it was out there before Dale. Just nothing. Mm-hmm. And I guess I can sort of hang my head on this one. It was nothing in the northeast ward where we have the Walmart until we put the first Walmart in this city there, and look at all of the businesses. So I'm saying to you, city manager, your marketing people, just need to get a nice little get together and show what we have done and what we are doing. And I know you're working hard, Mr. Lee.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Did I kind of get a motion on this from somebody?
Well,
have a second?
You can say.
Well, you done already moved.
Well, hang on a minute.
Who moved?
Councilmember McIntosh.
He's jumped on.
As you were speaking, I was...
All right.
Do I have a motion in a second?
I don't have a motion.
You don't have a motion.
Somebody motioned this thing.
I motion.
Now you
Why
can
is mine
second.
saying withdraw?
You're okay. We're all right?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, please vote.
Aye.
No, not on the computer.
You haven't. There's no. I made the second.
Got it. We have a motion. There we go. I did it.
You have to.
There we go. It was moved by Ms. Burke and seconded by Ms. Adams. Ms. McIntosh, you turned up doing nothing on this event. Will everybody please vote?
I will when I get a
Verbal.
Waiting on it.
Did you refresh?
There we go.
These Scots are slow. Okay, do we have 4 votes? We have 4 in favor, none opposed. That is approved. We will now go to G2. If the secretary will read this, and Mr. Leak, please hang around a little bit longer. I think this is you too.
Item G2, resolution approving financial assistance to HP Fabrics Incorporated.
Mr. Page, if you'll introduce this to us.
Yes, this item is a request to provide $125,000 economic development assistance over a 7-year period to HP Fabrics. In return, the company over 5 years will create 390 jobs, paying approximately $30,310 plus benefits, as well as invest $3.85 million for new facility upfit new machinery and equipment. In addition, they'll retain approximately $9.5 million in existing machinery and equipment that they acquired from microfibers through bankruptcy. The city's assistance equals approximately 50% of the net new sales and property taxes generated by the project over the first 7 years. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Mayor, you had a comment?
Yeah, just a comment, just again to clarify for folks who are looking at this, that some people think we're taking money out of our budget, making these payments, but it's paying for itself by the new taxes that this company's going to pay. As Mr. Page indicated, we're going to return about half of those new taxes for a period of 7 years. We're in the black from the day one, and then after 7 years, we keep all of it. So it's a pay-for-itself project.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes. Today, the Secretary of Labor made an announcement at the press briefing for today for the White House that they have an initiative. They're going to make some big announcement on Wednesday about workforce initiatives. Now we're talking about jobs. And it includes apprenticeships and a private-private partnership with businesses. I think if many of you remember when they were having these meetings at the White House with these heads of all of these major corporations, they agreed, supposedly, and they said it just like that today, that they are willing to look at the many communities across the country, particularly rural communities, urban cities, the unemployment rate among African Americans, Latino Hispanics, and others who have lost their jobs and not been able to get back. This is the initiative, so I'm just putting it out there that we're creating jobs. And when you hear that job number that the national says X amount of jobs were created, Winston-Salem is always basically a part of that number, and most people don't even know that or think that, but we help contribute to those hundreds of thousands of jobs that the nation says have grown over each month. But I wanted each of you to understand, please look Wednesday for that announcement, because we have been talking about that initiative with some business leaders here in the city. How do you get people, our young people and others, into the job market when they don't have the training, when workforce is the major key that the federal government, the state, county, and the city looks to do that, and they're going to be looking for cities to step up and have our plan or whatever in place as well. So just a heads up.
Thank you. Appreciate that update, Ms. Burke.
Yes, I meant to say also the work that Mr. Page is doing in working with this economic development. I want to thank you also. One of my colleagues called me today when they were talking about these apprenticeships. And he said, now, do you remember when we were over at the Career Center, we introduced an apprenticeship? I think probably the mayor is the only one who understands the job that was done through our apprenticeships, through our internships that we did, and I even had meetings with the superintendents. It was with Dr. Earl, Dr. Coble, Dr. Marshall. I said, each one of those men, it's a shame that we're going to do some work on the convention center and we can't even find a mason, a person to do brick mason in this city, that we have to go out of the city. Then I say it's also really looks bad when we have a career center, all that expensive materials we have over there with all those different departments, and then we also have Foresight Tech, and we have unemployment like we have in the city. So when I heard about what President Trump's daughter, I think she's one of introducing this, and I said, now we in Winston, if people could listen, we could have been a little more progressive with the jobs and opportunities that we could ordinarily provide.
Well, staff, please keep abreast.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of things are announced, whether or not they become reality, but I will tell you, I compete with a lot of German firms, and Germany has a tremendous apprenticeship type program. Basically, the government pays for the workers the first few years, and they have a very skilled workforce accordingly. Anyway, can I get sorry, I had two more comments on this one. Go ahead.
Mr. Page, do you have a sort of back-of-the-envelope number of what it would cost us if these people don't do this deal? They go to another community, which we know they're looking at another.
Well, of course, the net loss would be the revenue that we're currently getting So if they don't do anything, of course, that's 390 jobs that aren't created, 3.85 million that's not invested. But more direct is there's $9.5 million of equipment right now that goes away. So that's about $56,000 right now in property tax that we're already seeing that would basically go away.
When you compare that to $125,000 that we're essentially decreasing their tax bill by, that's a very rapid payback. That's a very good deal in my opinion. That math works extremely well. Thank you.
Mr. Montgomery, you had a comment?
Yes, I just asked Mr. Page if you will just talk a little bit more about the type of jobs and what this company looks for in those jobs, just so the community can just be more abreast of what that looks like.
Okay, the company is a textiles company. The jobs range everywhere from a blue-collar manufacturing type job, which about 337 of the jobs are that blue-collar manufacturing type job, up to jobs in finance, jobs in HR, jobs in sales and marketing. So have the whole gamut of positions available.
With the average being about 30,000?
Yes, sir.
30,310 plus benefits.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion on this, please?
I move for approval. Somebody else, sorry.
I was going to.
You too?
All right, do I have a motion and a second?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, if everybody will please vote when it comes up. The motion was by Ms. Burke, second by Mr. McIntosh. Will everybody please vote?
Y'all know I'm competitive. I'm
Okay, we have it was 4 in favor, none opposed. That is approved. We will now go to Mr. Leake. Thank you for coming. I'll dismiss you unless you want to stay longer. We will now go to G3, please.
Item G3, resolution awarding contract for street sweeping services to Sweeping Corporation of America Incorporated in the estimated amount of $340,935.60. This item was continued from the May 8th Finance Committee meeting.
Look, I was not here at the May 8th meeting. Could you just kind of reintroduce it? So
Certainly.
Kind of know
certainly.
As
as it was stated, this item was introduced last month. This is the contract to award an annual term, July 1 of 17 through June 30 of 18, for street sweeping services. There's approximately 5,800 miles of streets that would be included in this annual contract. Included in your resolution, there's an exhibit, Exhibit A, which excuse me, which details all the streets, the street locations, the number of sweeping occurrences in each of these areas. And then, of course, Exhibit B was the list of contractors that asked to be notified when this opportunity became available.
Okay.
We only had the one bidder offer a proposal for this service, and that was Sweeping Corporation of America. They are the current provider of this service.
Okay, and all these other people were notified of it?
Yes, sir, they were.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, comments, Ms. Adams?
Yes. The question and information that I asked for last month, if this is approved and as we move forward, I need to know when they're sweeping in my ward.
Okay.
I need to know through my assistant, the community liaison, because I do get comments, and I see them as well, that the streets just don't look that good, so the curb. So I think it would be beneficial for all of us, our assistants, to know, so they can go out occasionally and audit as to whether they've actually swept that street.
Okay. Don't we have, can one of the staff comment on, don't we do some type of audit?
We do have a follow audit. We'll try to make sure that we get the information to the council member, if possible, before and certainly after the audit has been performed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Burke?
This is not new. That has been requested over and over again through the city manager's office, that people need to monitor these people who do work. I said to him today, it's a shame and a disgrace how we have been neglected with cleaning our streets. And not only that, we should look at the cutting of the grass, the right of way. People need to monitor. You just have to live east of 52 to know what I'm talking about and the pain that I'm going through. And when I get to the East Ward, leaving mine, it's a disgrace. It's a shame that we have to live and see that. I won't be voting for this today.
Okay, thank you. Well, Mr. McIntosh.
Yeah, I was one of the ones last time around that had a concern with this as well as Ms. Adams. And I hate to award a contract where there's only one bidder. It doesn't feel like there's no competitiveness there. And from my understanding, almost all municipalities in the state have one company that bids.
For the most part, that's correct,
That
sir.
doesn't seem right to me. And to some degree, I mean, I read through the qualifications, and our qualifications are pretty stiff. I mean, I understand why. They're all protecting our interests, but there's some pretty steep hurdles in here in terms of the qualifications needed to do this. There have been folks in the cycling community who have talked about starting up a business in this arena to try to compete, but it's obviously fairly capital intensive. How do we get out of being in a sole source situation? I mean, I know we're probably a little late on it now, but are we locking into, I know we have the option to renew this contract. Do we have the option of not renewing it as well?
That is correct. In fact, included in the CARF this time, that there's a reference to a statement that says that our current contract expires, and we certainly can extend a temporary contract for a period of time. However, we make certain at the end of each year, normally about 90 days before the contract expires, we validate that both the business as well as the department is willing to extend that contract, and certainly we'll be checking that again this year. And of course, we're going to follow up with Mr. Turner and his staff on how the evaluation has gone this year.
So I'd be interested in strategies of how to attract more players, and I don't know that we really have the time to do that now. I would think maybe partnering with other municipalities. Again, you know the rules better than I do, but I'd love to have at least 2 people bidding on this contract. And then to go to something else, but they are, per the contract, they are required to gather and hold GPS data for a period of time. And I know the use of GPS data has been very good for us in terms of speeding and accident reduction. So how is that information made available to us? Is it just sort of freely given to us for us to, because as a monitoring tool, I think that's a really good way to sort of ride herd.
We'll start to provide that to you if you would like.
Not necessarily to me, but other council members may want to know. I mean, it just seems like with that data, we don't have to necessarily drive around behind them, although
Understood.
Some of that needed too. But then to go back to the cycling community, I want to know that there's going to be some effort made to emphasize areas that are underserved, and one of those underserved areas are the bike routes. And a little trash on the side of the road is unsightly, but when you're talking about cyclists, it can be deadly. So I need to know that we're going to have a renewed influence or interest in that. And I think we've also talked about acquiring some new equipment to do some of the greenway sweeping with. Is that correct? So that's a big deal in my opinion, and I think other members share that.
Mr. Bates, I know it's in here, but I'll just let you comment on how often is the typical street swept?
It is in here, but the downtown business district is once a week, and all streets thereafter are anywhere from every 2 weeks to once a month. Every 3 weeks, I'm sorry.
So I have to live on Country Club Road. Is that swept every 3 weeks?
Country Club is state road, so these are for city streets.
Oh, no wonder.
It's probably 5 times a year.
So 5 times a year for that one. How about typical neighborhood streets?
3 to 5
times a year.
Correct.
Yeah. My general comment on it is I actually go out with my little broom and clean up in front of my house periodically.
You do?
I do that. But if you're only sweeping a street 2 to 3, 4 times a year, it's always going to be dirty because there's 365 days in a year. You're sweeping it 1% of the time. Now, the cost would be significant if you were to do it because you're basically talking about driving that thing down every road again and again and again. And I think that's I have no doubt that they do what they say they're going to do. But the trouble is, again, if you sweep a road January, May, and October, there's a lot of days in there for it to be dirty. I would like to ask the staff, and you don't need to do this tomorrow, just one way to test this to see what we think it would cost to buy a couple of sweepers and some employees. That's one way to test the number. To me, it kind of sounds suspicious. Every city gives one bid. But I won't say anything more there because we're on TV. But it would just be curious to test the number and see what it would cost us to sweep the streets. And you could calculate that thing drives about 4 or 5 miles an hour, maybe at best, what it would take. But that'd be one way to test the number. Mr. Larson?
Did the city ever have this contract themselves?
Yeah.
And I assume there's a cost factor involved, but I mean, the thing about a monopoly, one bid makes you immediately question whether it's cost effective anymore. And the only other question I'd have is, there are a lot of streets in Winston-Salem that are actually state highways. And are we covering those as well under this contract? And so who does those? Who actually does those?
No one.
If it's something that makes them.
Well, okay. So we need to talk to Pat Ivy about that?
You can. Go right ahead. Mr. Larson, if you report back to us.
I would love to do that. I've got a couple of state roads that have cigarette butts everywhere in them.
Bring him back a report.
I will do that. I will talk to him as why he can't maintain his streets.
What is the favor of the committee?
I got one.
Oh,
Last question.
Mr. McIntosh.
Is the increased service provided to the downtown central business district paid for out of the general fund or out of the bid fund?
General fund.
General fund. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I move that we approve G3.
Okay, we have a motion to approve G3.
Second.
We have a second. Okay, when it comes up, you may vote for, against, or abstaining, and that is on your computer. Do I have? We have 3 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstaining, and this will go to the general full board next Monday night. Okay. That was G3. We're now up to G4, which is the last general item.
Item G4, review of proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 budget.
Can I back up 1 second, Lee? To answer the question, there was an obvious question made that you asked that we used to do it. Why did we get out of sweeping the streets?
Cost, I believe.
Okay.
I think it was cost, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I believe we sold the equipment, maybe to the current provider, or whatever the provider was at
We
the time.
sold the equipment. I don't know to whom.
Okay, just curious. All right, so now we're kind of finished our regular items. We're now going to go to the budget. It is 5:30. We'll see how things go, and I'll just leave it at that. I do know we have public safety committee at 6, and we could go a few minutes into their time, but we need to respect it. I was going to suggest, can we get on the screen the one-pager that, Ms. Tony, where you hiding back there? I can't see you. Where it showed the kind of the pluses and the minuses of what people had recommended.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
A little tiny.
All right, a little small there. Anyway, it's on our computers. Okay, there we go. Let me start off by saying, are there any questions or comments that anyone would like to make? And I will open this up to anyone at the table before we.
In general, or
just
about this?
well, no, not about this. Anything else? Because I do want to. Okay, I don't see any specific questions. I wanted to start with this page because I felt like the staff had done a good job of kind of listing on one page kind of what we've heard in our last 3 meetings on kind of what we wanted and didn't want. And some of these are pluses and some of them are minuses. So why don't, Ms. Tony, I guess it could be you. Can you just kind of talk through these so everybody kind of knows what we're talking about and if these are pluses or minuses?
Yes, we heard from you, Council and Finance Committee, on some requests that you wanted to add to the FY 2017-18 budget. The first one is the funding for the adult drug court that came to us by Councilmember Taylor. That cost is $35,000. Of course, this is a contingent on the Forsyth County paying the other half of that.
Okay.
For the, well, I'll just go down the list.
Just go down the
Then the annual military incentive bonus for sworn police and certified fire, that will cost $646,000. For a litter and illegal sign enforcement position, and truck, which will be a leased truck, $66,000. To reduce the proposed property tax rate by 1/10 of a penny would be $220,000. An additional funds for street resurfacing, $2 million, and seed funding for honorable youth. This is seed funding, some funding for a SOAR agency. This came to us also by Council Member Taylor over the weekend. That will be $5,000.
Okay.
And then for WISTA, to provide bus passes for agencies to provide to low-income TransAid passengers would be $90,000, and there is the revenue on the revenue side for the exact amount. And then to restore funding to Route 100 for further evaluation of usage between 6 to 12 months would cost $216,000 to add that route back in.
Okay. And the other items under funding options on the right-hand column?
So the funding options we just listed, they don't match exactly, but these are the funding options. You can fund one or a few of your additions. So in general fund contingency, we had $79,200 budgeted. We have budgeted 12 police officer positions, and so the request was to, if we defunded 12 police officer positions at $57,000 per year, and these would be really high vacancy positions. These would not be filled positions. Would give us $684,000. And then to increase motor vehicle privilege tax to $30. That would be double what is $15 currently. Would give us $2,048,000. And then the SOAR contingency fund has $10,000 in it.
What is the SOAR contingency fund?
So,
I mean, why do we have that contingency? How did that money get there?
well, there's some agencies that weren't funding, and we had some funding from the current year, and it's just a contingency.
Okay, all righty. Yes, ma'am.
Question. The one concerning the Honorable Youth, Inc., it's
Yes.
not that I am against that. I would like to have, the lady said she had surveyed and she had done so much in the Cleveland and the areas. I just need to see some of her background information.
Right. She did apply for the SOAR funding. The Community Allocations Committee did not recommend funding at this time, and but we have her application, and we'll be glad to get it to you.
Thank you.
What I was to suggest, and I was going to start with the committee first and then anyone else, the other three council members that are here, is just for the folks to comment on which ones you like, don't like, or if it's others you want to add or subtract. And Mr. McIntosh, you're first because you're to my left. I'll let you just say whatever you want.
Let me start on the funding side and ask just quickly, what's the difference between a general fund contingency and fund balance appropriation?
The fund balance we build in each year is about $2 million, and it's just kind of a holder.
That's off
we
the
don't
side.
typically spend it right,
Okay,
unless
and then
we have to.
General fund is what we take in and spend on a big bucket of
That's
things.
right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. My other question is, how many officers, firefighters, or is that $646,000 going to fund?
149.
And that, so that, can somebody do that math for me, what the per officer is?
That's not what they'll receive, that's the cost per officer. What they'll receive is a 5% bonus. That's the total cost, includes, so it depends how long they've been, you know, what their salary is. It's 5% bonus for military time, correct?
It also includes
benefits, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I know Mr. Garrity and I have had a conversation, as has Mr. Bessie and I, about the litter illegal sign enforcement position. I'm just as negative on seeing all that litter on a stick as I know Mr. Bessie is. I'd love to find a way to get that done within our current structure. I think $66,000 seems like a lot of money to do that.
I'm working on a plan. If council doesn't want to fund that, I can commit that we'll get it done.
Good. That's what I want to hear. Okay. And then on the Route 100, you know, as a testing ground, or assuming that that ridership is going to improve on that, I'm okay with it as a temporary thing, but I think it needs to show results within a 6-month period of time. I think that's sort of a charge for the universities and the entities involved to find a way to make use of it. But I wouldn't want to see that go real long without it. Ridership being up. Those are my comments.
Okay. Ms. Adams, do you have anything you'd like to comment on?
Some of them are the same ones as Councilmember McIntosh. It's not that everyone knows, don't get me wrong, I love our emergency responders, but I have an issue with this in the budget. I think we are doing what we can right now. I think we're, have we gotten there? No. Is it always going to be an issue or a concern to try to pay our employees? Yes, because we're so far behind the 8 ball right now. And that's what we're doing. We're in a catch-up mode. And my thing about this is, you know how I feel about obligating city taxpayers to different initiatives that this whole council may go away next year or whatever. And we have obligated this. I don't like the asking of how many. I had that question. And again, when you do this, and probably they already have, it's in there, I think. An example, what do you mean? I mean, what is it for? And why police and fire? Why wouldn't we do this for everybody? I mean, we have military people. How many military people do we have across the city?
Yeah.
Okay? Because I feel like if I was in the military, my service is just as lawful and loved just like everybody else's. The litter, I believe all of us have a concern of that. Over the past 10 years, Winston didn't have all of this litter on a stick and these flags all over the place. And the corner signs that crop up now used to be the weekend. Now it's every day. I think, as you said, Mr. Garrity, we can find a way within the sanitation department and vegetation or something, and we start with a pilot program of identifying those heaviest streets that we see this on that are now eyesores in the community. Again, maybe we want to let each council pick one area out of their ward, and we start from there. The seed money for the honorable youth, I know it's in their contingency fund, but again, I asked the question, I think, and maybe it's in the report. When we have a committee, the Citizens Budget Advisory, and the people that look at these proposals, and agencies are turned down, help me understand, again, I guess I need to see what makes them now eligible to be able to get it. I know it's up to us, the final say so, but I'd like to understand that better. On the bus passes, 90,000, is that 900 passes, 500 passes? What is it? What's the cost of the 90,000? I mean, it might be 35 for all we know. What does that mean? $90,000 for passes. What is the cost of the passes? Anybody?
I think it's $30 a month, aren't they?
$30?
Yeah, so that's 3,000 passes, if it's 30 a month.
3,000 passes?
That's 3,000 monthly passes.
Monthly passes.
Okay.
So it's going to serve.
All right, that's all I have.
I'll go around the table. Actually, Mr. Taylor, let me tell you what we're doing. Up on the board, and it's also on our individual screens, it's kind of the things the staff put together of kind of pluses and minuses they'd heard from various people. And I'm trying to let everybody speak and then decide collectively if there seems to be some consensus around certain items. So we've just heard from 3 members of the committee. I'm going to hold to the end. And I'm just going to go around the table. Ms. Burke, I'm sorry. Did I skip you? I'm sorry.
You said you were having a problem.
I am having a problem. Go ahead. He interrupted me and messed me all up.
Blame it on.
So anyway, Ms. Burke's going to comment on what
No,
else
I
she
was
wants.
just going to ask someone to briefly explain to me this, this tax, this 1/10 of a penny when you reduce the property tax. What will we be proposing?
I can do that. One of the requests was that the potential of using the $684,000 for defunding 12 police officers, instead of using that reduction on expenditure side, instead of using it for the military incentive, could we use it, which council could choose to take that and reduce the tax rate? And that's, so he showed you each 1/10 is $220,000. So basically, 3/10 of a cent can be reduced if you use that money.
One more before Ms. Burke. I just got
No,
one.
well, okay, one more than Ms. Burke.
Oh,
Well, wait a minute, she had,
No,
go ahead and finish.
You all may have the floor.
Okay. Miss, let me ask the staff to give me a number while she's talking. I'd like to know what the revenue neutral tax rate is and what the current budget proposed tax rate is and what that average percentage increase is. So it's 57 divided by 53 or something like that. But anyway, somebody could calculate that while we're chatting. Okay, Miss Adams.
I just wanted to ask, how many bus passes are being utilized now, right now? And they can get us that later. How many bus passes are being utilized to ride the buses, whether it's Transaid or the fixed routes? We should have that, right? Because we the ones that sell them.
We do. We will get you that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments from committee members? And I'm going to excuse myself to the end. I'm going to go around the table. Mr. Montgomery, you're next.
All right. Couple of questions and comments, and part of it has already been mentioned, and I have some suggestions in reference to the military incentive. My sentiment is similar to Councilmember Adams in the sense of the encumbrance ongoing for it, particularly that it's only for police and fire, and then thus we have chosen that military service only in police department and the fire department is somehow higher than those who had military service and serve in any other capacity within city government, which I think is something that I don't think we want to be making that decision to make that decision at this time. Particularly if we were going to give some type of incentive for military service, I would suggest that is something that is additional recruiting tool on the front end of something in terms of being able to do something to assist in that nature. And the way it is a bonus, and that would thus not allow for it to be, we could consider that at any point in time, but I think something like that, doing it and then pulling it away is harder than simply saying how we would effectively do something like that moving forward, which I think how it is proposed is problematic for all of city government, looking at how others who have been veterans and have served would not get the same benefit. And even if it meant something different in terms of how people move into certain tiers of pay rates in terms of those who've had a certain number of military services, that has some impact on where they come into the city on their pay rates rather than this type of setup and scenario that I think, again, could be some problems for the greater whole of those in city government. On the litter side of this, I'd be challenged on encumbering community and business development, community development with more work without additional support based upon challenges even now to fulfill what we're already asking them to do. And then now saying we want you to do something additional on top of some of the things that, and we want you to do it more efficiently. I just find that challenging for the department unless someone can tell me where that capacity comes from without hurting something else within what's already being done. And then on the area that has been mentioned, just on Route 100, I think that there's a great opportunity that exists in Route 100. I know that there's a challenge in terms of what we see currently with ridership, but that route itself has opportunity to connect together over 20,000 individuals who are on campuses within the community. And we have an opportunity, I think, if we look at marketing this correctly and engaging those campuses to do what many other cities that have major universities in them have done when it comes to connecting public transit within those universities and those campuses. And I think even 6-month, 12-month time frame to examine that more deeply, I think is something that we should take a look at. And I think it may even mean some adjustments in scheduling in terms of you'll see different ridership along those routes probably during summer times than you would during the year if we change some of the dynamics of how it is approached, particularly if you look at the heat route in Greensboro and how they have done a great job of connecting the campuses to certain connecting campuses within the city that I think has great benefit. These institutions and the students on those campuses, along with the faculty and staff, bring hundreds of millions of dollars of investment into this community, and I think $216 to examine the opportunity of expanding that investment is something that we should move forward with and take a look at.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, you may comment on anything you'd like.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to keep my comments very brief. I actually jacked this saying from the Mayor Pro Temp, and I'm sure you don't have a patent on it and you don't mind, but we always say we can't put a price tag on safety. So I wanted to speak up very briefly for those components of the budget adjustments that had to do with our public safety departments. First of all, I've been a huge proponent of the military incentive for our public safety personnel. It's no secret they've had difficulty in times past with recruiting and retaining some really good qualified candidates to participate in these programs. Now, we've got the brightest and best. We want to try to continue to do that. We've done a good job of raising police and fire pay. I think this military incentive is very important, so I'm going to stand by that. Secondly, when it comes to drug court, we know about the opioid epidemic that we're experiencing in the county, the cocaine, the marijuana epidemic. So I'm glad to see that this council and this committee seems to support the additional funding for drug court. It's something that's very important in terms of public safety. And then lastly, with the SOAR program, we've done a lot of good by creating jobs on one end for former offenders, but working with those agencies that support the work of former offenders, whether it's on the prevention side or the intervention side, seed funding for honorable youth. What we do is, the SOAR program allocates resources to groups that haven't quite had the backing of the city in the past. I think after speaking with the staff, we got a good plan for providing seed funding for honorable youth. So I'm just going to advocate for those three on the public safety side of things. I appreciate all of your time and consideration, and hopefully you support those and have those amended to the budget. Thank you.
Mr. Larson.
Let me get some clarification on this as we go along. Funding for drug court, I think, is incredibly important. I agree with my colleagues on that. We have a medical crisis going on, and we've got to attack it from all sides. We need to find the match, and that'll reside. We'll put the ball in the county or the nonprofit side and let them come up with the match. I'm a military guy. I'm a veteran. I don't know if anybody else on council is. But I will tell you that as far as incentives for our police and fire, first responders, frontline safety issues, that we have got to, we've got to give priority to that, and we've got to do it wherever we can. We use the excuse of having been in the hole and getting behind and doing the best we can, and I totally agree. I think the council has been very aggressive in the last 12 months for sure in trying to address this issue. But we do have an opportunity here of allocation of resources, and our job in part is to manage those resources in a timely manner and figure out how to use them best we can when we got them. Right now we have a bunch of vacant positions. We have funded salaries in those positions, and we should reallocate those resources particularly for recruitment and retaining of our officers, which is a primary problem right now. I hate litter. I mean, I'm fed up with driving around, and I had asked our city attorney to actually draft up a modification to our sign ordinance, which we can circulate if you want, which allowed citizens to become more actively involved in the removal of these signs. There was a question I had about whether individuals that were as upset as I was to be able to actually go out and remove these signs from public right-of-way. And there are, there's safety issues and there are all kinds of things. But we need a plan. Obviously, I think a lot of council members are struggling right now to how to address this. if it requires 66,000 and one man in a pickup truck or 2 men in a truck to go out and send a signal that this is not going to be acceptable conduct for a year or two, maybe we can get away with it. My understanding is when I proposed to look at the vehicle privilege tax, which nobody else has talked about, and I'll raise that issue, that it will generate a certain amount of revenue, and I'd hope that a large amount of that revenue would go to additional street surfacing, which has not been able to be covered by our bond, which continues to be the scourge of so many neighborhoods, and that we need to more aggressively address resurfacing our streets. That money can be achieved by the people that drive on those streets and have cars to do that. And we know gas prices are down, and I think we need to aggressively look at our streets resurfacing. If it takes a motor vehicle tax increase to do that, I think that's a good place for that to come from. The woman who, as I understand at our last meeting, pleaded for the Honorable Youth Incorporation, is that that was made? I thought that she made a compelling case. I was moved by her statements of what she could accomplish with very little money. And if we can balance the budget on the left-hand side with what's on the right-hand side, I don't see any problem with proceeding with that allotment as well. I will leave it to my colleague, Mr. Bessie, to explain how we're going to handle all of the $90,000 transfers. And as far as Route 100, which does go through my ward, and I have had several people concerned in the South Ward about being cut off. 101 is incredibly important. 100 has been brought up also. I do think we can look at 100 and see if the terminus points on those are working, and it may be that we need to push them a little further one direction or another beyond where they currently end to get maximum ridership and destination points, and I'd like the council to spend some time, or certainly with transportation, use this 6 months to a year, what have you, to examine that route and see if we can't tweak it to make the destinations clearer on either end to serve the audience of these students, which is basically what it's addressing right now. Are we getting the students to Haynes Mall, which is where they want to go? Can this route help do that? Clearly, it's an east-west route, which is going to be important, I think, as the interstate closes down. So I do think there is some value in spending some time looking at that route, and I would support continuing it.
Mr. Bessie.
I won't burn your time reiterating points that have been made on non-controversial items. So looking at the things that I hear pros and cons about, the military incentive bonus, if I were persuaded that that were the most effective way to improve our recruitment for police officers in particular, I would support it in a heartbeat. I'm not persuaded that that is the most effective way to go on that. I'm open to listening to that. But the problem we have structurally in city staffing right now is particularly with the police officers. That's nationwide. It's not unique to here. We're asking so much of our officers, and they are getting slammed in public debate so often that it's tough to fill the positions that we need and to keep them. We're working on that in the budget this year in ways that have been so non-controversial that we've hardly talked about them at all. This is a suggested additional way to work on that. Again, I'm open to be persuaded that it's the most effective tool. I'm not there yet, but that's my thinking on this point. The relatively minor amount for an additional literary legal sign enforcement position, an FTE, one FTE, and a truck to do it. I think it's worth this for our community appearance. And I think that Councilmember Montgomery has made a good point. The reason it hasn't been done as regularly recently as it had been from time to time is all the stress on our code enforcement positions at this point. I would love to see us be able to reshuffle and allocate additional resources within the current budget to get this done. I'm not persuaded that we're going to be able to do that because of the high demands on our code enforcement staff that we have now. So I support putting in the additional 66 in order to ensure that we have dedicated funds to get it done. The two items within the Transit Authority. I'm willing to go with an extension on Route 100, but I think we do need to demonstrate performance, so we need to direct, if we do that, we need to direct that a plan be created for measuring how we're going to do the outreach and how we're going to judge success and the time frame involved. The item, the Grinch item, I think I said earlier that if I'm asking the council to be the Grinch instead of Santa Claus on something, I owe you a detailed explanation of why. The problem that we have currently in our transit system, that we have had a consultant that we retained to study the system, our staff, and the WISTA board all recommend that we act on is the structural problem of having a TransAid fare that is lower than our fixed route fare. And in fact, we have the exemption for anyone who is eligible for Medicaid from any fare payment for TransAid, not for the fixed route. And what this does to the system, we are unique in North Carolina. We are the only system in the state that charges less for TransAid than charges for its fixed route, and that is creating a structural problem with growth in expenses for our system that is threatening our ability to finance the fixed route improvement, which serves a lot more low-income folks than does TransAid. And if we don't fix the structural problem, we're going to continue to see that problem increase. It's not about the revenue. And there are some very low-income TransAid riders who would experience a hardship, and that's what this proposal is intended to address. Fix the structural problem of having the TransAid fare lower than the fixed route fare, but provide a means for the very low income among the TransAid riders to neutralize the impact on them, so it's an even match. It's a take that revenue that comes in and allocate that to a program to provide, free passes for the very low income riders within the system. And for folks who are listening in the public, let me give a little bit more detail on what the problem has created. Again, we're the only system in the state that charges less for the service that costs about 4 times as much per ride than we do for the fixed route system. And as a result, we're the only system in the state that has ridership and costs of the TransAid system exploding in the way that we're seeing here. Over the past 4 years, TransAid ridership in Winston-Salem went up by more than 26%. During the same time, it went up about 10% in Raleigh, 6% in Durham, and less than 2% in Greensboro. And the cost of operating our TransAid system has jumped by over 46% over the past 5 years. That's well over twice the rate of the increase in cost of our fixed route system. During that time, during that 5 years, more out of every 3 additional dollars we have put into improving our transit system went to TransAid, despite the fact that it provides less than 7% of the rides. That is, hampering our difficulty to make the needed improvements to our fixed route system that, again, serves multiple times as many low-income riders as does the TransAid system. We've got to fix the structural problem. And that's why this particular proposal that fixes the structural problem by rescinding the complete exemption for Medicaid-eligible passengers. Medicaid-related rides are still paid for by Medicaid, by the way, and increasing the TransAid fare to match the fixed route fare, $1. That will still be the lowest TransAid fare in the state. It's 33% less than Greensboro's is today, and only half of Durham's, and those are the next 2 lowest TransAid fares in the state. So that's what I'm proposing. That's why I'm proposing fix the structural problem let us continue to improve our fixed route system for the thousands of people who need that, and not be faced with an ongoing situation where the costs of the TransAid element continue to explode at an unsustainable rate. And that's why I'm willing to be the Grinch in an area that I have fought for years and years to improve service.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll let you speak if there's anything you want to comment.
Yeah, just briefly, I think Councilmember Bessie makes a tremendous position here to clearly show why our structural issues are way out of kilter. This thing is exploding. Very reasonable approach to address it, but on the other hand, provide a way to assuage the impact on the poor and needy folks there. So I greatly appreciate that. I just would just call attention, if you look at the additional cost of reducing the property tax by $220,000, it comes straight out of our fund balance appropriation, 216. So to me, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah, why not just keep the way it is, keep our fund balance nice and healthy, and worry about it. But I think the good points made. I agree with the comments. I certainly support the police and fire, trying to work ways to help with the recruitment of those. And if the military incentive would help with that, I certainly would be in favor of that. But I think you're at an excellent point. We do have a lot of veterans working throughout our city. We got to not forget them.
Okay. Let me make a few comments, and Mr. Taylor, I'm going to be respectful of your time, and I personally think we're going to need to meet tomorrow. Do I hear any objections? And when were we scheduled to meet tomorrow, this committee?
2 o'clock.
So it's 2 o'clock?
Now we have an appointment already.
Okay, but if everybody, and everyone, of course, is invited. Let me, we're not going to vote on anything, but I appreciate all the input. I'm going to try to take it and try to come up with it. Let me kind of try to pull things together here for everybody to think about. First off, I hear general agreement for the funding for the drug court, but there's got to be some equal funding from somewhere else, and I think we could certainly put that in the budget with that contingency. I don't hear it there. As far as the annual military incentive bonus, what I was envisioning was right now, if you come in with a high school diploma, you get a certain starting pay. If you come in with college, you get a little bit more. And what I was envisioning, if you came in with, say, 4 years of military time, assuming it was maybe relevant military time, that would count towards that experience, and maybe you'd start off as if you had a BA degree or something. I didn't envision a 5% for everyone in the system. I agree with Mr. Bessie. If I thought this would help, I would support it. I think we need to look. First off, we have significant monies in this budget for overall police pay. It is a national problem. I am concerned whether or not even what we've done is going to make a difference, because it is a national problem. It's not a local problem. I could see us putting together some type of, maybe it's a signing bonus for anybody, or maybe you get a 5-year retention bonus and a 10-year bonus. Teachers may get something like that. I don't know that much about the teaching profession. But something like that, because what we got what, 14 in the class? 16? Somebody give me a number? Something like that, Chief? 15. Well, on average, I was right. And we'd like to have 30 or 40 in the class. And you know, maybe if you complete the course successfully, you get a X type of bonus. It's kind of what I'm hearing there. I don't hear an overall general support for that. The litter position, we added 2 years ago in the budget 2 crews to pick up litter. And we got trucks rented, and I think it's in here somewhere. It was about $300,000. Is that right, for those crews? Because they're like a 3-man crew or something. They're not a 1 person. Let me comment a little bit about signs before everybody gets too excited about this. You want to know whether or not a political sign is in a proper place or not, you got to have a PhD in GPS. If it's on a state road, we don't have any say so. If it's in the railway right-of-way, or if it's in a neighborhood, is it in the right-of-way or is it in private property? And it varies by every road. If a road's been widened, most likely there's virtually no right-of-way left. And you used to go by the old saying, well, if it's behind the telephone pole or the fire hydrant or the sidewalk or whatever it may be, well, you may have a road that doesn't have a sidewalk, or you may have a road that the fire hydrants are right on the street. And so it sounds good about hiring somebody to go pick them up, but let me tell you something, guys, it is tough to figure out which ones you can legally pick up. And I think Mr. Larson had the best comment on this. I think we need to take a fundamental look at our sign ordinance. And I think I'm correct on that we don't have authority over state roads. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Only during certain times of the year.
Yeah, well, that's even more common. Now we got to go. What time, Ms. Attorney? Would you like to comment on that?
There was some legislation pending to give us authority over the roads. I'm not sure it's passed yet, but
Okay.
I'll check on it.
But I'm just saying it's not as easy a question. Let's just go pick up every political sign or every real estate signs or rent, say your house for cash or all those type of things. It is complicated. Is all I'm saying. And I would be more. I just lost my screen here. Hang on a minute. I would be more amenable if we just wanted to add another crew to pick up trash in general, and we're not talking about 66, we're talking about 150. But I think if we're going to pick up trash, let's pick up all the trash as best we can. And I do think the 2 crews are making a difference. They are hitting certain roads regularly, but there's a lot of roads that are not hitting regularly. So anyway, my comments there. I think the mayor made a point. By the way, the average tax increase people are going to see this year is 6.2%. That is significant. And this, I think, is the 4th year in the row we've had a tax increase. Just FYI. Additional funding for street surfacing. There wasn't too much comment there. We could get $2 million by going from $15 to $30, but if we added $5, that's $700,000, roughly.
But if you couldn't get 700,000, you'd have to, if you added 5 under our local authority, you'd have to, only 1/3 of that could go for street.
Well, we could change the local authority, couldn't we?
That's an act. It's a local act.
It's a local act.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
For the General Assembly.
that gets too complicated. I think the honorable youth, because it's such a small amount, we do have some sore contingency. I think that's worth looking at, but I don't think we need to address it in the next couple of days as soon as the budget's coming up, but I think we need to get some more information there. I really think Mr. Bessie made a good point. Even though the numbers balance, on average, no one's paying any more. I do think we're incentivizing people over 60 to call TransAid instead of getting on a fixed bus route. I would suggest if we do give out passes, they be good on either the fixed or the TransAid. I would suggest if we do that, maybe we make it effective several months in to give us time to get set up on how you give the passes out. And maybe they need to be eligible for any low-income person, because there are some people that ride the fixed routes that could use a little help too. So I'll come back to Route 100 at the end. Whether or not we eliminate the 12 positions or not, Lee, you might want to look at upping there's a contingency in there for, what do we call it? Vacant positions. We put a lump sum number in the end.
That would be our recommendation here. Is we wouldn't eliminate the positions. We defund them, and we do that by raising salary savings.
Okay. And last, I will say, I just find it unbelievable we want to fund a route where it costs $71 every time somebody gets on the bus. I am a member of the Board of Trustees at Winston-Salem State University. I know of no programs that we do with Salem College or the School of the Arts. There may be something, but I don't know about it. I do not see that need to move students between those, and apparently they don't either right now. Wake Forest runs their own bus routes downtown. They do have a need because they have put undergraduate classes down in the tech center, and they are dealing with that. But and I even have concerns about the other 4 routes that it costs on average about $25 a person. I think we need to be directing staff to look at these. And we're not eliminating the routes. You can still run a bus through and pick the folks up. They just got to go downtown and switch, which is how most people get to Haynes Mall now. But it's my thorn in the side, and Mr. Bessie and I disagree on this, but we're still friends about it. But anyway, those are my opinions. I've tried to sum up kind of some other things we heard out there. We're going to meet again tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and at that point we will I'll throw some things out and just see what sticks, and we'll go from there. And at the full council, Mr. Mayor, you'll be in charge then. You may take any amendments or adjustments or whatever you like, and I'll let you take care of all that.
He can think for himself. Let me just say.
Yes, ma'am.
And, can't you think for yourself, Mayor? You know how
Occasionally,
to meet. You'll need that. But I wanted to make a statement about people who sit on the committee to say which agencies we fund and which ones we do not. I don't think sometimes that they are well informed on what the people are doing. And sometimes they may think that their proposals may not be fine-tuned like, let's say, United Way. They know how to write this. But then you have someone like Honorable You, maybe her proposal was not as effective as that group. And I think that they need to have a better understanding. I know that LUR, Liberty East Redevelopment, is the oldest corporation in the city. They're doing a very good job with the youth and with the families. And yet and still, the other year, they were not even given, and these people are volunteering their time on a daily basis to go down there and work with the children and with the families. So I think it needs to be telling the committee how to be informed, go on the site, and really get a clear understanding of what's going on.
Okay. One more comment, then I'm going to
Yeah,
go ahead, Mr. Montgomery.
Isn't the number you mentioned in a 6.2% increase?
6.22, that's what they just gave me.
That's from what? That's not from the existing tax rate.
That's from the revenue neutral tax rate.
Right, which is not the current tax rate. The revenue neutral tax rate is not the current tax rate. So just be clear that there's a difference in terms of what people are currently paying and what's proposed in the tax rate, and that's not a 6.2% increase from what the existing tax rate is to the increase.
But that is the average increase people will see.
From what, though? That's what I want to be clear.
Well, 70% of the people saw their rates go up and 30% saw them go down. So the 70% that saw it go up are going to probably get more than 6.2%, and those that saw it go down are going to get less than that.
You're cycling in property values is what,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
tax rate particular, but increased property value
I
percentage.
took what the revenue neutral rate is
Right.
and divided that into the new rate, and the difference is 6.2% increase.
We're going to spend 6.2% more.
The average person in this
No.
city is going to see 6.2. Some will see more, some will see less.
Well,
All right.
I just want that to be clear, though, that there, for public consumption, that there is the existing tax rate what people currently paying. There's the revenue neutral tax rate that upon revaluation, if we kept the same amount of money coming into the system, what that rate would be, which would be lower. And then there's the proposed tax rate. So there are three potential numbers there. The 6.2 accounts for that lowest number from the revenue neutral and not the existing tax rate. And so there's something different. And I may have complicated that for some folks, but there's a difference there.
I stand by my statement that the average citizen will see 6.2 because 70% of the people, there is no third rate anymore. It's gone.
Well, and that's 6.2 more average what they'll pay, but the rate itself is not a 6.2% increase.
No.
But 70% of the people are going to see more than 6.2. Okay. We're adjourned. Mr. Taylor, 5